right, I'm here with Paul, OneShotPaul from Stockton. He got second place in our Bay Area regionals, and I'm here with him trying to get his perspective and what he thinks about this regionals and how his approach, and maybe you can take some of his strategies and his approach to this tournament and learn from it, because I didn't do well in this tournament, but he definitely did. So let's introduce him. OneShotPaul, where are you from? What Discord are you representing? And is your rank now?
All right, so I'm from Stockton, California, right in the Central Valley, just south of Sacramento, for those who don't know. I'm currently not repping any sort of Discord server. I'm flying solo. I'm a member of many, but not an actual key part of any of them. So we do have a host that hosts local PvP tournaments every month, usually the last Sunday of the month for us. We maybe get 8 to 12 people, so it's relatively small, not a huge number of very experienced players. And now, currently speaking, my rank, I am 421st.
Nice.
In the world right now.
And I'm sure the tournament today did not hurt that ranking at all. If anything, boosted you like a ton, right?
It did. It definitely boosted me a good, probably 2,000 places. I went from 6.5% to just inside the 1% mark. So
yeah, unfortunately for me, I dropped like 700 spots in one tournament. I think the sliding scale was definitely not in my favor. It was so if for those that don't know, the sliding scale, I think the Sylph Arena put it out recently that let's say it's a 10-man tournament, right? Player 1 will face off against player 6, 2 will play against 7, 3 will play against 8, 4 will play against 9, and so forth and so on. So what happens in regionals is that I feel, this is what I think, right? So I'm not making excuses, this is just like kind of like my theory, is that the gap between 1 and like 6 in this case is much smaller than the gap between like 5 and 10. What do you think?
I would agree with that. I'd say that's pretty on par, because once you get into that last bracket, it's hard to move any bit. Like you start to top out.
Yeah. So like even though your ranking was like decently below mine
was 33rd.
Yeah, 33rd. I was ranked 2 in this tournament, and you just smacked me. So I got matched up against Paul in the first round, and he smacked me. We were running very similar teams. So if you want to tell everyone what you were running.
Yeah, I brought in Bastiodon for flying coverage. A Zoom Roll, it's a tank, right? I used Ice Beam Play Rough for my charge moves. I had a Frenzy Plant Venusaur, Skarmory, Medicham, and then my true flex pick was actually a Haunter, and that was running Shadow Claw, Shadow Punch, Sludge Bomb.
Sludge Bomb, Shadow Punch.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and I ran into him. I saw that Haunter. I kind of smiled. I'm like, oh, perfect. I have this Sableye. I completely erased this Haunter, but you didn't end up running it. So in our matchup, I ran Sableye. I forgot, maybe Bastiodon. I forgot what it was. I have to look at the footage, but I made the mistake. I'm not even sure if it's a mistake. I think you just like predicted that I wasn't going to change my lineup, and you beat me 2-0 because we just reran the same lineups, and I probably should have changed it up, but that's great on your part. You just smacked me.
I actually picked that up from, I think it was your video.
Oh, really?
99% certain you had said, like, when you win that first one, it's not really your job to change out of it. You let your opponent kind of adapt, and you stuck with it. I was like, all right, he said it. I'm like, use that strategy. It worked out well.
Yeah, man. I'm glad that you took my strategy and used it against me. I'm kind of like, it's like this weird feeling of like pride plus like I don't even know how I feel right now. But okay, so I wanted to ask you how you prepared for this tournament. As you said, like you're part of a very small community out in Stockton versus like my community is much larger, right? We have El Cerrito, San Francisco's not that far away. Also, I have my own, we also have Berkeley, right nearby. Versus you said you're in your PvP tournaments, you get like maybe 8 to 12 something people, right? So how did you prepare for this tournament, and who did you practice with, I guess?
So really practice with only 2 people. So Ricky 007, he's the primary one who I practiced most with, and then 64 Ninja was the other one. So I would honestly have to say that within our community, we're easily 1, 2, 3 as far as top 3. So it's kind of hard to practice with someone who doesn't take PvP as seriously as you, right? Otherwise, you're not going to learn anything. Was it luck? Do they even know what they're doing? Why did they choose that? So I had to pick with who I had available to me. So I met Ultra Friends, messaging later in the evenings. Hey, dude, here to get some rounds in. I didn't get into a PvP Discord until way late, so I unfortunately could not utilize that.
Yeah. You're talking about the large PvP Discord, right? I think they called it Go Stadium or something now.
No, I'm in a different one that's only got like 32 of us, that has Kanaku and Elliot and Mustache Mark, our organizer, and stuff like that. So those guys are in it. Pretty small, but I'm only been in it a couple weeks.
Nice. I'm sure you're gonna get several more requests after this, man. You're definitely someone, an asset onto someone's sparring team. So look forward to that.
I try to be, man. I try to be.
All right. So how did you come up with your team? Like, what did you do to make your team?
Going backwards, we knew we had 4 tournaments to pick from. Pretty much what I did is we looked at every single tournament cup, and we tried to look at who was the best Pokemon in that one, and then the reason for it. What we ended up with was a team of incredibly bulky Pokemon. I feel like this one was the bulkiest set whatsoever, right? You had Bastion, Azumarill, even Medicham, right? They're tanky for their types. So we figured if you have a Pokemon tanky enough, you end up with, not needing shields, or the shields become even more valuable late game. But we needed something that was well-rounded. We started to kind of piece things together, pick things that covered each other's weaknesses. And then you start watching guys like yourself on YouTube, and you start looking to who's doing all the investing for me, right? Oh, this guy's already invested in Medicham, or he's already invested in Haunter. Like, cool, if I can watch him do it first, see how it works out, and then take my pieces from it.
For sure. Yeah, like, I try not to invest too much dust. I'm pretty frugal. I'm like most PvP players that don't grind all the time. We're always running on a very tight Stardust balance. Like, I think I'm at like 80,000 right now.
I wish I had that much. I think when they had us fill it out this morning, I think mine was 14,000.
14,000.
Yeah, luckily for me, the Haunter was done from Twilight Cup, because it was going to be an early pick for me in Twilight. And then last minute I decided not to run it, so it was there already.
Yeah.
So same thing with the Medicham. Almost everything I had was from the previous cup.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Except for the Venusaur. Did you have Venusaur?
I had a Venusaur, but my Venusaur was too big, so I had to swap one of my friends for theirs.
Nice. Yeah, I had to trade for a Venusaur as well. My Venusaur was too high. Like, the IV was like 93, and pretty much what that meant was the CPs was going to be like 1464, which like I don't like it. I could have used it probably would have done the very similar things, but I ended up getting one from a community member as well. So I'm very thankful for that. So for those of you watching, try to like make a lot of friends in communities, as smaller communities such as yours. Those people that are willing to help you out trading, they're invaluable, right?
Absolutely, because I mean, for me, it's actually a real blessing in disguise, because even though most of my friends on my own system, they're not even big time PvPers. So when they're saying, "Hey, I'm looking for this and this on Facebook or something," like, "Oh, I've got one of those." I'm like, "You want to trade it?" Like, "Yeah, sure, I don't care." Like, it's a great asset to have, because they have your back. They're like, "Oh, I'm never gonna do PvP. You guys are crazy for that. Here, take mine. We'll swap. I'll take the higher one anyway."
Yeah.
Like, it's such an amazing resource to have.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I kind of wanted to go through how you went about practicing, because I always like to preach this, is like, practice is probably the most important thing. Like, you can have the perfect team, you can have perfect IV Pokemon, but if you don't know how to use them, it doesn't matter. So I wanted to ask you, like, how you went about practicing. Like, did you, like, we kind of know how you picked up your team, but like, how did you put them together and like learn to use them?
What it came down to is that you're looking at the team, and for me, I was trying to see what each one covered each other's weakness. Hardest part for me was picking 3 out of 6, right? Because everything is so well balanced. I'm like, how do you pick just 3? So then you start doing these little like lines. Okay, this one's good against 3, this one's good against 3, this one's good against 4. Based off of odds, you just kind of throw it out there, and then you kind of just hope you're picking a great lead. You try to pick who do you prefer to lead with, and if you have to swap, what's not going to like absolutely suck and then just swap into it.
For sure.
Like with your team exactly, I was like, okay, I don't like the Sableye. There's no way in hell I'm going to run a Haunter against it. What do I have that beats Sableye? Okay, it's 2 things, Bastiodon or Azumarill.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to run an opening for Medicham, because if Medicham goes down early, then no one else has another answer to Bastiodon. So I felt like Medicham in the back's highly likely. I don't think I'll run into it as a lead. Bastiodon felt safe for me.
Yeah. A few times for me, like I ran into a Medicham lead, and that hurt so much because I was running, like after our match, like I started running Bastiodon lead, and I think around the 4th round, someone started, like I led with Bastiodon, won the first battle, and Bastiodon the second one, he led with Medicham, and things just tumbled after that because I switched in, I think I switched in Skarmory, and Medicham versus Skarmory is pretty even with a slight edge to Skarmory, like ever so slight there, right? And yeah, he ended up winning that one, and the last one, yeah, I lost that one too. But back to you, because you are the highlight of this video. I wanted to ask you, like, what were some of the weird Pokemon that kind of threw you off guard? Like, what was a team lineup or a Pokemon that kind of threw you off and you actually faced?
So for me, the most odd team that I faced was actually the finals. And the finals, he was not running a Bastiodon, and those who were not running Bastiodons were running Melmetals. He had neither. He ran Whiscash, Lantern, Azumarill, Venusaur, Skarmory, Medicham. Not seeing something that my Medicham can immediately tee off on threw me off. It immediately got in my head. I felt like, okay, half his team is weak to Venusaur. He knows that. He's going to read it. He's going to lead this. But I was like, if I'm wrong, then I lose. It's an instant loss. There's no way to play out of it. If I had just trusted my gut and just did not do like this 3 steps ahead thing, I would have been fine.
Yeah.
I would have been fine.
Sometimes I feel like we get in our own heads, right? We see like the obvious choice and we don't go with the obvious choice. And that ends up biting us in the butt because they do the obvious thing. So it's like the meta inside the meta inside the meta. It's like, oh, what like you're playing mind games at that point. And I actually ran into a team. I'm gonna be talking to him later. He's actually one of my good friends. Maroon 6. He was running. Yes. Yeah. Did you fight him? Did you play him?
No, but I did see his team because I had anticipated there was a likelihood we might see each other late rounds.
Yeah. Maroon 6 was running a Quagsire, a Whiscash, and a Azumarill, right? So similar to what you saw, kinda, and that's totally baiting like the Venusaur, right?
Yeah.
And he actually did something super slick, is that he in the first round he wouldn't run any of those. So his other Pokemon were Melmetal, Skarmory, and Medicham, right? So if you brought Venusaur against those, like the only thing Venusaur can kind of go up against is Medicham.
Yeah.
Like it has, it's gonna be close with Melmetal, but it's not doing very effective damage, right?
Right.
Rock Slide is going to be doing neutral damage to Venusaur, and it charges super fast. So if you bring Venusaur against those, like it's just you're just kind of you're not utilizing Venusaur as good as well as you should. So hearing about yours is like, yeah, like if you do that against Maroon 6, you get one result. If you do it against trainer AJG, who congratulations to your win, but
well deserved.
Yeah, well deserved. He did his studying. He came well prepared, and he got the win against a very formidable opponent, and Paul right here. But yeah, hearing and seeing Trainer AJG's team, yeah, it reminded me a lot about Maroon Six's. And if you don't think ahead, like he can kind of pull the switch on you. It's so totally like mind f, right?
Right, it is, because at that point I'm like, is he thinking this far ahead or is this me? Like, you almost start to make yourself almost paranoid of how it's going to happen, so you start thinking way too many steps ahead.
Yeah.
And you end up back to where you started into a bad spot. You should just go with your first instinct, let the numbers kind of roll into it.
But other than Trainer AJG's, did you see any other Pokemon that kind of like made you raise an eyebrow, or a Pokemon that you actually possibly thought about using in your own team, but you ended up not, and then you faced it and you were like, oh, so, okay.
Round 5 against Trainer Volkner, who I had played previously in Davis. His team was very similar to mine. Instead of Skarmory, he was running Altaria, which I did not actually get him to use it. But Muck was his option over my Haunter, which I thought was really interesting because my buddy told me, he said he came across it like 1 o'clock this morning, that Muck was like Haunter, but better. And I was like, how's that possible? You already sold me on the idea of Haunter and how well it does against the entire meta.
Yeah.
So, really quickly, I had to pull up on PvPoke and actually go through and see what do I have in my team that beats it. I came up with Skarmory and Bastiodon. And because I didn't know and I'd never tested against one, I ran both. And it worked out in my favor.
Nice. So you're just like, all right, I'm going to throw these two in just in case he does use. Did he end up using it?
Both every game.
Every game. How many battles did that go to?
This time we just did 2-0.
2-0? So you 2-0'd him?
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Let's see.
Yeah, Skarmory put in a lot of work for me on that one.
Nice. Yeah, Skarmory, I found, is kind of like it can win very well against Venusaur, which is probably the reason why you bring it. It's neutral against Skarmory, obviously. It's pretty neutral against Azumarill.
Yeah.
Medicham now in Boulder Cup, Skarmory was a counter for Medicham.
Yes.
And now with Power Up Punch, the new move, it's so hard. It
completely changed it.
It completely changed it to be like either neutral or a slight win, or like it can slightly win both ways, right?
Right. You have either way, like if I see a Skarmory against my Medicham, I'm not worried. You're like, this is even enough that I'm okay with this.
Yeah. I've seen it a few times where people would switch in their Medicham into my Skarmory. I'm just like, oh, what? Like that doesn't. That's something that really threw me off preparing for this cup. Is like, because of Power Up Punch, it has changed the whole dynamic of using Medicham versus Skarmory.
Absolutely.
Something that I saw. So I checked the Sylph rankings today, like right before I got in this call with you. Valor Ash, he's a big trainer in like the Austin area. So a Pokemon that he ended up using was Gallade. Did you see someone? I think someone ran a Gallade in our regionals as well.
They did, and I was actually preparing because I wasn't sure if I was going to go against them or Volkner going into that round. I ended up not playing it, but he was running a Gallade. And I still don't know why. I don't know of its purpose. It had to be a confusion user because I think its only other fast move is low kick, and it's just subpar to counter.
Yeah.
So it came up to confusion. I just didn't understand its purpose outside of maybe beating Venusaur. I still don't know the purpose behind it. Someone better than me is gonna have to explain that to me.
Yeah. So my theory is that he placed it instead of his grass user. So what ends up happening is that the main reason why you run a grass user, as in Tropius or Venusaur, is that you want to counter those mud boys, right?
Right.
And Gallade has Leaf Blade, which is a grass type move.
Right.
And on top of that, it can counter Venusaur with Confusion.
Okay, so it's kind of a more neutral matchup to the two then. I guess it makes sense. I just would have never.
Yeah, I didn't think of it because it's not a Pokemon that we've used in the past, right?
Nope.
It's a Pokemon that is kind of new. We haven't really found its purpose, but I kind of found that Oh, it also has close combat.
Yeah, I did see the close combat,
So,
but I just didn't think anybody would actually run it because the other charge move is psychic. So you've got two big single bar charge moves or Leaf Blade, and I was like, I don't understand how you're gonna do it.
So
it doesn't.
So you know how Venusaur, right? It has, if you're running Vine Whip, you have Frenzy Plant and Sludge Bomb.
Yep.
And if you run, and those, like, Venusaur will do nothing to Skarmory, right? Skarmory can just farm. But if you run Gallade, right, and you get stuck in that matchup, even though, like, Skarmory is doing super effective damage with its fast moves, it can't farm that energy against Gallade. Right. Because if it does, then Gallade gets to that close combat. It's going to do stab bonus, close combat, neutral damage to Skarmory. Yeah,
it hits hard.
So I just never thought of it. Looking at the team now, like, I was like, oh, that's actually a really smart move. I wish I would have thought of it, but at the same time, it's like I didn't think of it. I wish I could steal that from him. In hindsight, but
in hindsight, I think I would have changed one thing about my team.
What would you have changed?
The Ice Beam off of Azumarill to Hydro Pump.
You think you would have done that?
Yeah. It actually definitively wins the Skarmory matchup. It also adds Bastiodon into another thing that it wipes out pretty solidly.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's okay. Ice Beam. Why was I running Ice Beam? Because it hits grass pretty solid, but you still lose that matchup either way. And then Altaria, you rarely seen, but it still wins with Play Rough. So I don't know if I needed two like anti-Altaria moves on one Pokemon, or if the Hydro Pump over Ice Beam would have been better. Because Hydro Pump gives me better coverage for more of the meta. Because I wasn't sure if I was going to see a lot of Steelix. And I was kind of anticipating more Steelix, and there wasn't a single one. So Hydro Pump on the Azumarill would have been the only thing I would have changed. I still would have ran my Haunter, still would have ran the Medicham, would have ran everybody as possible there.
Interesting. A lot of people were debating running Hydro Pump instead of Play Rough. The reason why you wouldn't do that, though, is because you get stuck in that mirror match of Azumarill versus Azumarill, and you're at a big disadvantage, and that mirror match comes up way too often.
It does.
So the reason why I think Ice Beam is very useful is because to bait those shields. Now, I personally wasn't able to bait too many shields with Ice Beam just because I just couldn't bait too many shields with Ice Beam. The Azumarill versus Azumarill is the only time that you could possibly bait it, I feel like.
Yeah, or I could have actually baited it in the final when I let my Azumarill die to Medicham over and over again because I had to replay that game. Yeah. I don't know why I didn't learn the lesson. Maybe it was like stage fright type thing, and I got in my own head. But yeah, apart from that, and then doesn't Play Rough? Isn't that the only thing that also hits Sableye?
Yes. Play Rough also hits Sableye for super effective damage. Fairy's the only thing that hits Sableye for super effective damage. But so interesting. Ice Beam alone can knock out Medicham. It's just not a one-hit KO kind of deal. So, but Hydro Pump, I think seeing that a lot of people were running Bastiodon and Melmetal as an Azumarill counter, I think Hydro Pump could have thrown more people off. So I think that you're onto something of running Hydro Pump versus the Ice Beam. But then everyone knows that you only have Play Rough, right? And so they can count your moves to Hydro Pump.
If they count it, I mean, something that's not afraid of Ice Beam isn't going to be counting the moves for a Play Rough anyway. I mean, because that's the thing, right? I mean, you're not worried about a Play Rough against a grass user, but he's gonna lose that matchup anyway.
That's true.
And the Play Rough you're gonna keep for Medicham because that's the move that does better, and then the Hydro Pump because you need the Play Rough for mirror match because that's way too common, like you said. And then the Sableye coverage, and then an Altaria coverage, and then Hydro Pump beats the Skarmory, and then Bastiodon, and probably Probopass by the time everybody else plays.
So you said Hydro Pump will beat Skarmory?
Yeah.
So
If you look at it, Hydro Pump gives the Azumarill wins that with more HP than if you just had Ice Beam and Play Rough.
but you would have to bait the shields on Play Rough, right?
I'd have to look at it again. You could, in theory, do it, but if the person doesn't know you're not running an Ice Beam,
That's true.
you could.
But once you use Play Rough one time, they're gonna know.
Well, would you bother trying to bait the shield? Or if someone was letting you charge up to a Hydro Pump, do they think like, oh, this guy just built up 2 Ice Beams? And then suddenly they're like, okay, I'm not going to block the first one because I can tank it. And suddenly Hydro Pump hits and you just see the bar just drop.
Yeah.
It's a surprising because not
Yeah.
everybody is running it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's definitely a tactic, and I think it can work. Like, so if you see my Tempest Cup, like, I ran a Snow Bomber, right? So,
Yes.
Powder Snow, Obama Snow, and people say, like, oh, after you win, after that one round, right? Like, they're not going to fall for it again. But in all reality, one round is half of winning that round, right? One battle is half of winning that round, which I think is huge, right? So if you can get that surprise factor one time,
it does its job.
That it does its job, right? So I think you're onto something. I don't know how it would actually pan out because obviously I can't do another regionals, and you
likewise.
can, yeah. But it's something to keep in mind in the future. If it may be next regionals, or maybe if you get invited to Worlds. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
But overall, I wanted to get your final impressions of this Regionals Cups. Did you like it? Did you like the preparation? Did you like the idea? What do you hope moving forward with PvP Regionals in general? Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Man, I was actually very, very impressed on the production value. I was more worried that it was going to end up being just a group of 60 plus people hanging around like a park, just kind of hanging out to hang out. The way that they got it to be hosted at San Francisco State University was great. They got us in our own little room. The production values there with microphones, making sure everybody could hear it. The timer to keep everybody on par from dragging it on and keeping it punctual, I think was tremendous production value. I don't know if you can really put a value or a price on something like that because it gives you peace of mind. When something feels structured, you don't have to worry about the tournament running the way it's supposed to and then worrying about your matches. It lets you just focus what you came here to do, and that's play, right? I think that was huge going into it. I hope there's a little bit more clarification on who's going to get regional invites because I wasn't sure if I was going to get one based off of global ranking. So I was grinding to get my global ranking up and also my local club ranking up because if I didn't have one, I wanted to get it here.
Yeah.
So maybe a little bit more simplified way of being able to predict it. So you're not really kind of stressed out for no reason. But the meta was awesome being able to pull those first 4. I'm hoping though for like the next wave that they will keep legendaries and stuff allowed because I think it adds another aspect to it. Half the fun is hunting down fun stuff like that to make your team better.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the legendaries personally because, so for example, right? Because legendaries you have to trade. Like for example, Cresselia or Lugia, you have to trade to get those CPs down, right? What I'd actually like is an option to, instead of powering up your Pokemon, to power down your Pokemon.
I'd like that. That'd be cool.
That'd be cool. I don't know if Niantic will ever really do that, but I think it would be a cool idea because you're spending Stardust either way, except your Stardust and Candy to power down. That'd be an interesting thing.
That'd be kind of neat.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea of trading for legendaries though, because what it makes you do when this whole game was started was to make you run around and talk to other people.
Yeah.
You have to interact. So if I've got to see this random guy, okay, he and I are not friends. But that means that our Lugias can tank, right?
Yeah,
because if we're best friends, the IVs have a floor.
Yeah.
They don't have a floor, so it makes you kind of interact with people and ask, hey, got any old Pokemon with like Legacy moves or Lugia? Dude, I can't tell you how many times I do that now.
Nice. Yeah, like I don't know. Like I have a Cresselia under 1500, but I don't have a Lugia. Lugia isn't. It has its spots, I guess, as in terms of the meta and PvP. At least in the Great League, right? It has its spots. It's not like the best Pokemon. It's no Altaria, but it has its spots. But like for me, for example, Defense Deoxys, right? I've been extremely unlucky with Defense Deoxys. I must have done at least 4 or 5 EX raids. The first 2 were weather boosted.
Oh.
The third one had like really good IVs, so it's not ideal. It had like 15, like 13 or something like that, and so it was gonna get to a weird CP. And then also on top of that, mythical, right? You can't trade it. So what? And you can only do so many EX raids, right?
Yes.
Those are limited. You can do 2 a week if you get an invite. So like that's one thing that I'm like, yeah. And legacy Pokemon, even though I'm lucky enough to get a lot of legacy Pokemon from my community, I have a much larger community and they know I'm really into PvP, so they help me out whenever they can. But I do see how like some people in smaller communities can kind of like feel at a disadvantage if they don't get those legacy Pokemon. Like in Kingdom Cup or Tempest Cup, if you didn't have an Ice Shard Lapras, I feel like you were at not Kingdom Cup. If you didn't have an Ice Beam Lapras, you were at a slight disadvantage. And in Tempest Cup, if you didn't have an Ice Shard Lapras, you could possibly be at a slight disadvantage as well. So that's my thinking on that part. Legacy Pokemon is different from what we were talking about in terms of legendaries and mythicals, but it kind of fits into that obtainability of Pokemon deal. What do you think of that part then, like legacy Pokemon?
I think they're a fun aspect because it gives you something to go chasing after. I mean, it's kind of interesting to find people who have forgot about their account. I think I have an account. I stopped playing a couple years ago. Yeah. You're like, do you mind if I take a look through? I mean, it kind of adds like a treasure hunter styled aspect to it. I mean, if you want to get real technical, kind of adds like part of the cartoon back when we were kids. So, because you're looking, it makes you look where you would have never thought looking for. Mm-hmm. You can't just go spend a day on a pier and farm it until you get the right one. Like you need to be more involved in it. Mm-hmm. And I did actually think about running Lugia for this one, but I decided not to, just because all he does is beat the other flyers. He doesn't actually beat anything else. Yeah. From what I had seen. So I was like, yeah, I'll just stick to what I know.
Okay, man, I think that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm sure this will help a lot of people that have their tournaments, their regional tournaments coming up. Do you have any parting words? Any last advice to give anyone who's preparing for their own regional tournament?
Man, just, meta's meta for a reason. I wouldn't try to go too far off it unless you were like the winner, right, who had this completely off meta team. But he also had an entire stat sheet full of everything his team is supposed to do and not supposed to do. And he came prepared with it, so be prepared for one. Try to pick a solid lead, that's about it. And then try not to vary or get too crafty with it, otherwise the meta always ends up kind of correcting you back toward it. But thanks for having me, man. It was a blast.
Yeah, for sure. I did want to shout out though, Maroon 6 was 5-1 with a very off meta, like not weird composition. So, so it could work, but like you said a second ago, make sure you're prepared. Know how to use your Pokemon.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot, Paul, and hopefully I'll see you again soon in an upcoming tournament, and look forward to practice battles with you, man.
Absolutely, for sure.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for having me, man.